Well, hello and welcome to Newscenter. I'm Ashmit Kumar. Now, in a major relief to Congress leader Rahul Gandhi, the Sessions Court in Gujarat's Surat district has granted him bail in the 2019 defamation case and has set 13th of April as the next date for hearing. Now, in his first reaction after this relief, Rahul Gandhi said, and I quote, "In this fight, truth is my weapon and support." End of quote. Gandhi had filed an appeal against his conviction in the defamation case before the Surat court. He was accompanied by his sister Priyanka Gandhi Vadra and Chief Ministers Ashok Gehlot, Bhupesh Baghel and Sukhvinder Singh Sukhu. Along with them, party workers and leaders from across the state gathered in support for the former Congress president. The court had convicted Gandhi for his remarks on the Modi surname and sentenced him to 2 years imprisonment, leading to him being disqualified as a member of parliament. So what does the road ahead for Rahul Gandhi look like? Well, to take this discussion forward, I'm now joined by Mr. Sanjay Hegde as well as Mr. Vivek Sood, both senior Supreme Court advocates. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. First question, as far as the takeaways from today's order are concerned, the bail has been granted, but there is no stay of conviction. What then does that mean for his disqualification? Does it continue to be in effect? Or is there a question mark now on it after the grant of bail? Mr. Hegde, to you first.
Well, stay of conviction has not yet been granted simply because the complainant needs to be heard. So notice has been issued to him, and that part of the order and the hearing will take place currently on the 13th of April. It doesn't mean that a stay of conviction has been ruled out, nor does it mean that it is an automatic given. So we shall have to see what happens on the 13th.
That's an interesting clarification. So no stay of conviction, importantly, and that essentially means that the disqualification proceedings continue to be in effect. There is no change in status quo as far as disqualification is concerned. Mr. Sood, let me come to you now, addressing the elephant in the room. We've seen the story play out since the morning when we woke up with the morning cup of tea. The story has been playing out, and it, of course, has been played on account of various Congress leaders, Congress workers descending upon that Sessions Court in Surat. The charge that is being leveled by the central government is that all of this show of support is designed to intimidate the Sessions Court judge. The opposition itself, Congress itself, is saying that, look, it's a legitimate show of protest, a sign of protest against this conviction. Your take on that?
You know, whenever these convictions happen, whenever these appeals are filed, it is very frequently seen that the family members and friends and others do congregate, you know, in support of the accused or the appellant or the convict. So, you know, I think it will be too far to say that it is designed to intimidate the court. But definitely it does, in my view, amount to playing to the gallery or something like that. But I would not say that, you know, this is unjustified or it has any intimidating effect on the legal process. The judges are independent. They have an independent view. The learned judge has applied the law and he has granted bail to Mr. Gandhi. So that's my take on what's playing out in the media.
Interesting. Mr. Hegde, same question to you. We're seeing the likes of Ashok Gehlot, Bhupesh Baghel, Sukhvinder Singh Sukhu. We've also seen Priyanka Gandhi Vadra descending on that Surat court. Your take on the visuals that we have been seeing since morning and the centre's charge that, look, they're trying to intimidate the judge here by the show of force.
Well, I don't think judges can be intimidated by whoever happens to come into court or outside court. That doesn't happen. The second part is that, you know, in my days when I used to file matters, there were clients who told us that you have to file this matter between such and such a time and my astrologer or my Babaji will accompany you and bless the papers. So there is not only a participation of the person filing the appeal, but the extended family and the neighbors and everybody likes a good tamasha and everybody likes to show solidarity. So I would not be reading too much into it. Of course, it makes for interesting visuals, and visuals is what drives politics. So, well, the BJP might have a complaint, but then it was a BJP member who filed the original complaint, wasn't it?
Sure. Well, so just another day on the political calendar. We'll take it as that. But Mr. Hegde, let me continue with this. The first point that you had raised is that there is no change in status quo as far as disqualification proceedings are concerned. Bearing that in mind, the strategy that Congress appears to be going for is that we want to address the issue at the very fulcrum, at the very heart of this, which is the conviction itself. They've not explicitly issued a legal challenge to the disqualification notice and the disqualification proceedings. What is your reading of this strategy by the Congress? Is it a smart strategy to not also challenge the disqualification proceedings themselves?
No. See, the disqualification has come into effect because of a Supreme Court judgment in Lily Thomas's case. To ask the Supreme Court to review Lily Thomas or to reread Lily Thomas, that's a long shot, and it will take its own sweet time. That is unlikely to provide immediate relief, where a simple matter of a stay of conviction pending the appeal. It could be granted by the district court. If it is not granted by the district court, that non-grant can be appealed all the way to the High Court and to the Supreme Court. I think that's better and safer strategy. Vivek is here. He will tell you that we lawyers tend to keep the issue as narrow focused as possible. Lawyers and judges answer and question only that which is strictly relevant. Don't go all over the countryside.
Sure. Mr. Sood, Mr. Hegde was alluding to your take on it. Let's get you in on the subject as well. As far as the challenge that was anticipated by the Congress, it was anticipated that one, they'll be challenging the conviction in the Sessions Court. And number two, it was expected, it hasn't happened yet, it was expected that the Congress and Rahul Gandhi in particular will also be challenging the disqualification notice. That has not happened. Your reading of this strategy by the Congress to go and only approach the Surat court?
I think time will tell as to what will be the strategy of Mr. Rahul Gandhi. But I agree with my good friend Sanjay that since the disqualification is a fallout or a consequence of the conviction, so it's best to attack the conviction and try and get a stay of the conviction. Because if you can get a stay of the conviction, then as a consequential relief in terms of Lok Prahari, judgment of the Supreme Court of 2018, the disqualification goes. Now, insofar as the challenge to disqualification itself is concerned, some PILs, etc., have already been filed in the Supreme Court that the bar should be lowered and Section 8, should be declared unconstitutional, etc. So the challenge has already come. Therefore, I think all these interesting legal issues will be gone into. But one can see the strategy with clarity that, first he has obtained bail. Now, bail was a routine. In such cases, bail is a routine. Bail and suspension of sentence is a routine in such matters. And now the stay of conviction, definitely it will be heard in the court. It will not be a routine matter. It won't come, so easily. It will depend upon so many factors, prima facie case, etc., etc. So let's see how this pans out in the Sessions Court on 13th of April.
Sure. Mr. Hegde, let me also, talking about the fallout of the disqualification proceedings, there is also this apprehension within the Congress that we could have the Election Commission ask for a by-elections in Wayanad now that Rahul Gandhi stands disqualified. Is that a legitimate fear? Would the Election Commission be acting within its powers if it were to go ahead and announce the by-election? It hasn't done yet. In fact, when the dates came out for Karnataka, it was anticipated that the by-election dates may be announced. It hasn't happened yet. But is that something that the EC would be within its powers? Is that a legitimate concern?
There is no bar on the EC currently from declaring the by-elections. And in fact, they did it in the Azam Khan case. So yes, if the Election Commission were also to rush into it, then possibly there would be fresh causes of action. But I do think that the Election Commission has decided to wait and watch, because there was a 30-day stay on the sentence itself earlier. Now there's a stay for a longer period. And in fact, even my reading of the Lily Thomas case, there is a point of law to be argued there. Because Lily Thomas says that no sooner that there is a conviction and sentence, the disqualification comes into being immediately. But what happens if a sentence gets stayed? Do you think that all such people who have a conviction, who are facing an appeal, but who have a stay on sentence should also be automatically disqualified? Maybe there is some play in the joints there.
Interesting. Well, that's a very interesting discussion. We're running out of time, Mr. Hegde. We're coming to final comments. A final word from you. April 13th is when the application will be taken up for stay of conviction. Should it not happen, what then is the remedy available to Rahul Gandhi? And how do you see all of this playing out when you see it in the lens of the upcoming Lok Sabha elections?
I am not a political analyst, so I won't go there. If there is no stay granted, then the remedy is obvious. Go to the High Court. It's, of course, an open question of whether the High Court or the Supreme Court will say that we will grant a stay, or they will say that, we do not interfere at the interim stage. Finish the appeal first, and then we will hear you.
Mr. Sood, final comments from you. Again, looking at it from the lens of what's expected 12 months from now, the Lok Sabha elections. Do you see this perhaps as being a factor of these cases being filed against the opposition parties? Do you see that as a uniting factor, or do you see that as perhaps a factor that may demoralize the opposition forces?
I'm not a political man, and I'm not a psephologist, who can predict, what happens in the political landscape. But definitely, what happens on 13th of April, the future, if suppose the conviction and the sentence are not stayed, obviously Mr. Gandhi will file a revision petition or a 482 petition before the High Court, because it won't be appealable. So as you go higher, the challenge becomes narrower purely on questions of law, and revisionary jurisdiction and extraordinary powers of the High Court. These jurisdictions are very narrow. So let's see how this pans out.
Sure.
But definitely, if he is not granted relief, it will be subjected to challenge in the higher court.
Sure. So indeed, that's the key date to watch for, April 13th. That's when the Sessions Court in Surat will be taking up Rahul Gandhi's application seeking a stay of the conviction. The big D-Day, April 13th. I'd like to thank both of our panelists, Mr. Hegde as well as Mr. Sood, for taking out their time for addressing the subject and speaking to us on the issue. But with that, it's time now to head into a very small break. Up next, we understand that the first heat wave and now unseasonal rains, farmers are staring at losses. We'll in fact come to that issue. That has in fact been an issue. We've all been experiencing the heat wave conditions as well as the unseasonal rains. Now, Indian farmers are staring at huge losses. They've been scrambling to save their crops from uncertain climate. Now, according to a latest report by the IG Group, production of fruits and vegetables may decline by nearly 30%. The decline in production is likely to hit supply eventually, stoking prices of essential commodities. Joining us now to talk about the weather conditions and what can be expected in the next few days is Mr. G.P. Sharma, President of Met and Climate Change at SkyMet. Mr. Sharma, firstly, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you spending your time speaking on the subject. This is something that affects large swaths of land in North India. We're talking about millions of hectares here. First, give us a sense of your assessment in the days to come, the next week, 10 days. What is the likely rainfall looking like, and how severe is it going to be, given that we are talking about unseasonal rains here?
Yes, the opening month of pre-monsoon, the March, that has been a very, very unusual, I will say, behaving abnormally. The first half was threatening to, as you specified, there's some heat wave conditions also were there in some parts. They turned suddenly, twisted, and then we had a lot of rains, hailstorm, many areas, particularly the agri bowl of the country, northwestern parts, central parts also. And the southern parts of the country also had some unusual weather conditions lasting for a couple of days. So very unusual March, I will say. The first 2 weeks, they were down by about 80% rainfall, but then covered up in the subsequent 2 weeks, went surplus by almost about 30%. So an outlier March, I will say. But then, as you said now, what is likely in the month of April, it is not looking as harsh as it was the second half of March for two reasons. Firstly, the second half of March and first few opening days of April, this is the typical harvest season for Northwest India, even I will say some central parts also. So it is damage already those crops, be it the crops, be it the vegetables, be it even I will say the
Sure.
most of the crops which are there in Kharif, they appear to have damaged over large parts of the country. This covers Punjab, Haryana, Delhi region, even Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh. Hailstorm is a deadly combination with the strong winds to damage these crops, and all that happened. Not once.
Sure.
There were almost about more than 2 rounds over these parts. And the weather conditions, though they have improved a bit, but then still not very conducive for the crops as such. North India is raining today also. Okay, there could be some hailstorm in
Sure.
some couple of pockets as well. Tonight, evening, we can expect that. Obviously, it's not a welcome sign. But the first half of April, at least it will not see any heat wave conditions. The only thing, if it comes up, that could be possibly the second half when the weather condition seems to be improving a little and heating up
Sure.
over some different parts of the country. But before that, it's going to be rain in some pockets,
Right.
taking turns. Northern parts, central parts, even southern parts also will have this activity. Yes, Ashim.
Sure. Sure. Mr. Sharma, we're getting initial reports that the states of UP, MP, Rajasthan, as a collective, they're looking at about nearly 6 lakh hectares of land being affected by these unseasonal rains. What is your understanding of the likely damage as far as the crops are concerned? Which are the most likely to be damaged crops? And in response to this, what would be an ideal policy initiative to address some of these farmer concerns on account of unseasonal rains and damaged crops?
The damage on account of this weather activity, which I just mentioned, the hailstorm is the main danger for these crops. And along with that, as I said, the rains were also widespread over parts of actually Rajasthan area, which normally doesn't see such type of weather activity, parts of Punjab, Haryana, even West UP, and the hills also, Uttarakhand also. There were some heavy to very heavy rains also. It is unseasonal, untimely, and obviously leading to a lot of damage as far as the crops were concerned. You name a crop, a rabi crop, it is damaged over these parts. The only thing is all the pockets, they haven't had hailstorm as such. So wherever hailstorm was there, that damage is possibly beyond even absorbed of the farmer as such. Whereas some other things which have gone a little better way as far as the weather activity is concerned, they may absorb that shock as such. As I said, all the crops in all parts, particularly starting with Punjab, Haryana, coming down to Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and then further eastward parts of Chhattisgarh, Bihar, and West Bengal, they are in the gamut of this, which have been suffering a lot of losses on account of this crop loss. And as I said, the only relief is that heat wave is not there, which was threatening earlier that we'll be screaming as far as the heat is concerned, above 40 degrees for extended number of days. So that is the only respite, but then obviously it's not a good news for farmers. Yes.
Sure. Right, Mr. Sharma, thanks a lot for your perspective. Again, just for the benefit of our viewers, we're only getting initial estimates from states of UP, MP, and Rajasthan. States of Punjab, Haryana, Himachal, Bihar, Maharashtra, West Bengal are still doing their initial assessment of the damages that have been caused by these unseasonal rains. We'll, of course, continue to get the latest updates on that. With that, it's time now to slip into a very short break. But coming up next, we bring you insights from the G20 Sherpa's meeting chaired by India's Sherpa, Amitabh Kant. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, the four-day G20 Sherpa meeting chaired by India's Sherpa, Amitabh Kant, concluded on Sunday in Kerala's Kumarakom. Speaking to CNBC-TV18's Ritu Singh, Amitabh Kant said that the meetings have been fruitful and expressed optimism about bringing the G20 countries together, even as the foreign ministers meet in Delhi was unable to agree on a joint statement over the Russia-Ukraine war.
Everybody realizes that this is a critical moment, and G20 must seize this opportunity to be ambitious and action-oriented, as the Prime Minister has said. And we must be very decisive. That is very clear as far as economic action is concerned. That's number one. Number two is there is a very strong feeling that emerging markets have been impacted by policies across. I think there's a very clear perspective that everybody needs to be together in this, and that G20 unanimously must voice this. There is a challenge of geopolitics, and everybody feels that we should bring countries around and agree and push this bold and ambitious agenda forward.
Given that, in the foreign ministers meeting, in the central bank and finance ministers meeting in Bengaluru earlier, we could not come out with a communique. There was a chair statement, widely because of these political differences over Ukraine. Now, G20 is not a political platform, but unfortunately the issue has been dominating. You sound quite positive about the meeting so far. Are you hopeful, that we'll come out with a communique at the end of it later in September?
The foreign ministers meeting, we tried our best. The time was very short. So we built the basis for that in the Sherpa meeting. In Bali also it was done at the Sherpa level. There's a challenge, but I think the Sherpas will have to rise to the occasion. So we've built the base for it. We'll discuss this again for the third Sherpa meeting, and we are very hopeful. At least I'm very hopeful that India should be able to bring everybody together in the interest of the world. That's number one. Number two, the war is not our creation. We can be very ambitious about everything else, but the geopolitics in Europe is not our creation.
But India has a delicate role to play, given its relations with Russia and the Western nations.
Absolutely. And we are playing that role. We are playing that role to the best of our ability, and we will play this role.
What does India have to offer the world in this difficult time? You have a war, you have a recession, you have inflationary concerns, you have the world just recovering from the aftermath of the pandemic. What can India offer through this G20 presidency?
I think today what India can offer is a very progressive, forward-looking, action-oriented agenda for the world, which will take care of the challenges which emerging markets are facing, largely on account of the policies pursued by the developed world.
Well, sticking to the theme of G20, PM Narendra Modi's constituency, Varanasi, is gearing up to hold multiple G20 events from April to August. With international delegates flocking to the holy city, the authorities are working to give the city a full facelift and ensure better security situation at the same time. Popular tourist destinations like Varanasi's ghats and boats are also getting cosmetic upgrades. Shivani Bazaz brings us the latest from Varanasi.
Now in the holy city of Varanasi, which is scheduled to host multiple G20 events in the coming months. From local shop owners to the famous boatwalas and the hotel industry, all here are gearing up to host international delegates.
Going by the tentative schedule, Varanasi is set to host a meeting of the working group on agriculture between the 17th and 19th of April. Between April and August, the city is also slotted to host a slew of other G20 events, including the engagement group meeting of the Youth G20 Summit, the meeting of the Working Group on Development, a ministerial level meeting, and one of the Working Group on Sustainable Finance. Of course, visiting foreign dignitaries means heightened security preparations and a facelift.
There are 6 events, June onwards, right up to August. So the basic planning and preparation has been put in place. The deployment pattern has been put in place, and the expected locations, they have been cleared. So all the groundwork has been done. We've done 2 training programs for our officers in soft skills, and we are going to do 1 more, and if required even more.
We are involving all the stakeholders and all the city people to participate in this, because their participation is important. It is an opportunity to showcase our rich culture, tradition. Apart from that, the regular works like beautification of the cities, the improving of infrastructure, that is also happening parallelly.
The beautification plan focuses on the routes the dignitaries will take and the places they will visit. So the roads leading to and from the airport, the Taj Hotel, the Rudraksh International Convention Center, the DDU Trade Facilitation Center and Namo Ghat are in for more than just a simple paint job. The tourism industry is also gearing up for the events, and hotels expect occupancy rates, which are already at 90%, to hit 100% in the coming months. As many as 32 new properties are expected to come online before the year ends, and work on these are being fast-tracked to make the most of the surge in demand. But there is one big challenge.
Hotels are jam-packed, which is a very good thing. But we are facing problems also because during COVID, many people had left their jobs. They are not coming back. The skilled sector workers for hotel industry, we are lacking in that.
Even the menus are getting a special makeover. In keeping with India's dreams of capitalizing on 2023 being named the International Year of Millets.
Ahead of the G20 events, the hotel industry in Varanasi is showcasing its innovation through its millets menu. Hotels across Varanasi have a wide variety of appetizing millet dishes like bajre ki khichdi and ragi ke litti chokhe.
In our region, we are almost 11 hotels together. So all the chefs, they came up with some unique recipe. So in the end, we could actually, come up with a recipe booklet with 45 plus recipes.
Popular tourist destinations like Varanasi's ghats and its boats are also getting cosmetic upgrades. Registration of boats has been made mandatory and all boats have to comply with a color code.
रजिस्ट्रेशन तो बोट का हुआ है, लेकिन अभी पेंटिंग नहीं हुई है. पेंटिंग होने में समय लगेगा क्योंकि पेंटिंग करने में बहुत समय लगेगा क्योंकि घाट से लेकर जितने भी बोटें हैं सबका पेंटिंग होगा, इसीलिए बोट में थोड़ा समय लगेगा.
For Varanasi, which is also Prime Minister Narendra Modi's constituency, the G20 events are more than just a slew of meetings. They are an opportunity to offer the G20 delegates and other guests a glimpse of India's rich cultural heritage and unique experiences. In Varanasi, with video journalist Hruday Patra, Shivani Bajaj for CNBC-TV18.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Newscenter. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news and updates continue on the other side.